Usually in many games where there are enemies, you have to kill them. This also applies to friendly and harmless games like Super Mario, Hollow Knight or Final Fantasy. Of course, there are some where it's not necessary to do this and they can be completed without a single kill. And today, I'd like to tell you how I tried to make something similar with Micro Tense, but it was a platformer with RPG elements. Usually these kind of videos are made by amateurs like me, but they recreate some already released games with almost the same assets. But I tried to make something of my own. But still, I think this kind of videos on YouTube is a pretty good way to tell people about my creativity and my intentions, and share something that could inspire and help others, as well as not repeating my mistakes if you decide to do the same thing. This can be said about any form of creativity, whether it's art, music, video games, movies or videos. It's just that video games combine many of these aspects and players can feel a part of them if the game works well with them. I don't hide the fact that I was inspired by previously shown games, but I also tried to add something of my own. I should probably start with the visual style of this game, pixel art. It's common for many indie developers and aspiring artists to use it, and I just like it. But I also wanted to make it look like a comic book or a Cartoon Network show, which is especially noticeable in the concept art and in the character designs on the cover of the game. And in addition to it, I added a pinch of surrealism so that you could better feel this weird atmosphere of the World of Darkness, where all the events take place. And yeah, I decided to make it a real World of Darkness, which exists in parallel with the Light World, and it as big as it is, with its own characteristics, inhabitants and structure. In Deltarune, with which parallels can be drawn, dark worlds turn out to be the worlds of living objects, for the most part. As for the characters, let's start with this skeleton. Their canonical name is Bon, but we'll get back to that later. We'll be playing as them, and this is the character in whose place players should imagine themselves and adapt them to themselves, including taking the plot actions and actions in battles. Usually in such games, these characters are just people with a neutral appearance, but not all of them feel like an independent part of the story, and are not very memorable. I was guided by the idea that if you make an empty character without a backstory, let it be a skeleton, and their appearance can be explained by the fact that they got this appearance in the World of Darkness. Although I came up with this character quite a long time ago, and during this time they managed to change several times. But now the video is not about that, and I will also try to avoid plot spoilers. I drew some sprites and animations for different player states. I did the same thing with other characters, and also drew all the tiles from which I will make levels.
What?
Now let's move on to the engine. I used GameMaker Studio 1.4. I wrote a simple player controller. We can move around, jump, interact with objects and attack. I also made an NPC that will follow us and help in battles. And let's talk about them for now. I decided to combine platformer and RPG elements, making battles in corresponding style. In addition, I decided to make two battle modes, Modern and Retro. In the Modern, where you encounter enemies, they will immediately try to attack you and this bar will fill up. And when it's completely filled, you can call up the Actions menu, in which you can attack enemies in response, somehow interact with them, use an item from your inventory, or spare them if their HP is low. And in Retro, the battle will only start if the enemy catches up with you, and the menu will be called automatically after their turn ends. You can attack opponents with fists, melee weapon, or by jumping on their heads. But wait, I thought there was no need to do this. Yes, you can talk to them as Bon, or use Avery's charisma to convince them to stop fighting. Or you can just walk past them, but you won't get any money or XP. Now let's get to the levels. I drew a concept for the room's layout and designed the rooms themselves, placing obstacles, enemies and bonus chests where necessary. as well as triggers for cutscenes with long or not very long dialogues, and sometimes different variations of them, depending on how you played the game and how you played it before. Yes, it remembers all your actions, and even when you start a new game, they remain. So, for example, Avery can sometimes say that he feels something familiar, or he can get scared of you and leave at the very beginning. So think ahead if you don't want this to happen. I also decided to make the character control a bit better. Most people don't like platformers because they are difficult and require a lot of time, effort and nerves to go through all of these platformer sections. I made a jump buffer, so you can jump again when you're on the ground, even if you press the jump button a little earlier. Also coyote time, so that when you're in the air, you have a little time when you can jump again. And also I decided to add one new ability. Since Bun is a skeleton, their bones can separate or rebuild, which they use, for example, to cross chasms. It's time to add a mini-boss and a mini-game. The mini-boss is a stronger version of one of the regular enemies and has different attacks. Avery's charisma doesn't work on him, so you can only negotiate with him for Bun. And the minigame is 5 games of 21 points with one spider-like creature named Tiggs, after which you can get that new ability. And also some small things need to be added. NPCs to make locations more lively, objects that can be interacted with, and a couple of simple puzzles. I also added a feature to name the main characters whatever you want, but if you don't care, you can use their canon names. I don't often see that you can do this with someone other than the main character. And of course, place checkpoints and at the same time save points where needed. As for the music, I made it in FL Studio. You can watch one video about how to work in this program at the link in the description. But I wanna say a few words about how I personally compose something, because I rarely hear anyone talk about it. It all started with me recreating my favorite tracks either by ear or using shorts from the internet, or using MIDI files. Over time, I began to come up with something of my own, and I began to make the tracks from it that you can hear in the game. The same can be said about drawing, for example, but I've been doing it for a long time, and something of my own arises automatically. But I've only been doing music for 3 years. I know that not all tracks can be ideal, and I still have room to improve. And this applies not only to music. Well, that's probably all I wanted to tell and show about the development of the first act of this game. I want to say right away that everything I described wasn't done in the same order as in the video, and I had one long creative downtime. But I still managed to cope with it, and finished at least part of what I wanted. I hope you enjoyed this video and the game. You can see all the links on the screen and in the description. There are still many things I'd like to share with aspiring indie developers, and if this video takes off, I'll make a similar ones from time to time, in which I'll answer your questions and tell you some game dev related stuff. So don't be shy and ask questions that concern you in this area. I'll try to answer them. If you like the game, leave a review on GameJolt or itch.io. You can also recommend the game to your friends or play in a different, more unclean, or more peaceful way. Do this at your own risk, and recommend the game to your friends too. Okay, finally, here's a bit of gameplay.